Right then, let's get talking about this week's episodes. I think I'm probably going to come across as being... I don't think people are going to agree with me much this week. I don't know how much people do generally, but I've got a feeling that my overwhelming opinion... Well, most of my opinions this week will be not in alignment with some of our listeners. But I don't care, because I'm going to say it anyway. I know what I thought about this week's episodes, and I feel quite strongly about them. Gemma?
You feel quite jolly.
Strongly. I'm not going to be back down on what I thought about this week's episodes. So we're going to start off with, and this is quite a good storyline for it actually, a bit of a cock-op storyline about Aled's cochlear implant, and some may say...
Operation cock-op.
Yes, exactly, it's cock-op, exactly, it's cochlear operation. Some people might say that Wednesday's episode was a bit of a cock-op. But what did we think? Well, we have to wait and see. We then have the Cole in the Hole storyline when we say goodbye to poor old Norris after... How long has he been in the show? 25, 26 odd years? I've got Zidane's storyline title. What's Z up to then, hey? What's Z up to? Thank you for that chuckle. Yeah, I've got the Max Payne storyline, and he was even more of a pain this week than he was last time. Kaylee and Jelly, and...
No.
Kaylee and Jelly.
Jelly? Where
Jelly.
did the jelly come from?
Shut up. Bailey. Kaylee and Jelly, and then with a Bailey.
You've just written Bailey.
I can't... Well, it could barely hold my attention this week, that storyline, so I can be bothered to come up with a storyline. It is barely worth mentioning, actually. Very good. Right, am I right to take the Frida story?
Yeah, I'll just sit here with my tea.
You sit with your tea. You got your mini dime bars because we went to IKEA last night, so we've been happily chomping away at those. We bought some bedside tables and spent about an hour on it this afternoon, and we've got onto step 2. So
Of one.
There's like 14, 15
it's
steps.
such a stupid cliche.
We had the wrong
to be
screwdrivers,
rubbish
I think, but
putting-
never mind. We need to get Paul on it. Okay, so a bit of a cock-up then.
Who's
So,
Paul?
Paul Foreman off Corrie, he's all
I wouldn't
very
trust him
hands-on.
with my bank card.
What about Brian with his, what's it called? Chainsaw. Need that. Right, anyway, Corrie, Gemma, she gets an invite for them to go out to this thing on Monday with someone whose kids also got cochlear implants, so she wants to go and have a chat with them.
Can you stop gesturing, because you're wobbling the bed and my tea keeps shaking.
Sorry, I can't help it. I'm talking about Gemma and Frida. I'm doing the sign-in.
Put my tea down. Now you can.
So she's
gesticulate wildly.
She's gonna go off and meet this lady with the cock-op son.
Oh, you're assuming it's a woman.
And Frida. And so she has to go to town on the bus or something. Frida calls for Gemma later on because Gemma's supposed to be going to this deaf playgroup thing, but she's not there. She's missed it. She's thought it was too important to spend time with the people who've had the cochlear implant operation than go to the deaf playgroup. And this gets Frida's back right up because she's obviously for many months now been dead against Aled getting his cochlear implant, and this is just more evidence that Gemma is attempting to distance her son from his people, from the deaf community. So not particularly too much on Monday. Wednesday was the main event, wasn't it?
Wednesday was the controversial.
Yes. Let's just say what happened, and then we will talk about it.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything.
So, the day of the operation, supposedly. Bernie's very excited about it, doing a little dance in the cafe or something. Gemma is still having doubts about it because of the whole drilling into the skull thing that's needed to get this implant jammed on in there. So later on, Frida goes to the cafe where Bernie's there with Daniel, just having a leisurely preschool coffee, as we all do. And she's got this video of a deaf child who's hearing for the first time. And I think we've all seen
these are really
videos
famous.
Like this, haven't we?
Where the person sits there with the lady on the computer, and then the person's like, just gonna turn it on, and then they're like, can you hear this? And then
the little kid's face just lights up. It's very, very cute.
It's very heartwarming.
Very, very so. But Frida, not so much. She says, "There's not a magic wand this operation. You know, he doesn't know what sound is, so he's hearing something, but he's not going to translate it. It's going to be weird for him." And
she also says they're really rare. Those videos, like not everybody who has this implant is going to have that experience where suddenly it's like the angels are singing to them.
She sees it as some kind of propaganda from the cochlear implant people.
It does kind of seem like that.
And anyway, so Bernie says, well, however it happens, at least it means that Alad's going to be normal again, or something to that effect.
Yeah,
anyway, that doesn't go down well in the slightest with Frida, who has now been labelled a freak pretty much by Bernie, according to her. So Frida goes over to see Gemma, who's still fretting about what's going on with the quads and everything while this operation's going on. And Frida's like, don't worry, let me take Aled off your hands for a little bit. I'll take him for a walk and you can deal with the other kids for a bit. So she goes to the park and we have this lovely little scene with her meeting her deaf friend. I can't remember what the other one called. I know the translator was called Lisa that turns up, the interpreter.
The other person is the sign language teacher.
Yeah, she was, wasn't it, a few weeks ago, wasn't she? So it was a pretty silent scene, wasn't it? While the three of them have a conversation. And
apparently, if you wanted to understand what was going on, you either need to learn British Sign Language or you need to have put the subtitles on.
Put the subtitles on. Apparently, they said what they said. But I think I really enjoyed watching it just to see if I could figure out what they were saying, and fairly could. This is when you picked up about Frida using the little chubby cheek sign for Alad's sign name, didn't you?
Yes, I was really proud of myself.
Yeah,
I was. I think that my perspective on Wednesdays was clouded by how smug I felt for
you could
realising
understand what was going on in that scene.
Number one, last week I picked up that Norris was eyeglasses. Yeah. The thing about sign names is that they get given to you by other people. You don't get to pick them, but they're sort of a sign that you're part of the community. It's a very kind of special thing to have.
So that ties in very much with what's going on here, then, doesn't it? So anyway, George comes over and he's had a bit of an argument with Frida or something. I think that was the other storyline, the Norris storyline, and Lisa and he chat about Frida being worried about Aled, how the other person is teaching her son BSL, and George says, don't worry, Frida, everything's going to go all fine. I think talking about the funeral.
Can I just say another thing?
Yes.
I don't know if everybody knows this or if it's obvious and I was just stupid, but it wasn't until relatively recently, a few years ago, that I found out that British Sign Language or the sign language that's used in this country is different from other
American
countries.
sign language,
American sign
English. Very well our own to ourselves.
Hearing people from America, Canada, and England, if their English is their first language, can obviously all understand each other. And that's part of our shared culture. But British Sign Language and American Sign Language are not the same. And I always thought it was a bit of a shame that, there's a barrier there between the deaf communities of our two countries when we have such a strong connection through our shared language. But, I don't think that deaf people really care. I've heard they don't care.
So Frida sees Bernie later saying, it's so great that Alad's going to be able to hear soon, and Gemma won't have to worry about those sign language lessons again. He's going to be able to fit in, he's going to be able to talk properly, and Frida's doing the bit in Kill Bill where the bride sees one of her enemies and they go, and it was at this point, wasn't it? It's she's going to kidnap him, isn't she? Yeah. So Gemma comes over to the kebab shop later. She's getting a bit frantic because Frida's supposed to have returned Aled by this point and she's still not there. So she starts to worry that Frida's snatched him. She has a go at Bernie for upsetting Frida and is really starting to worry by this point. And they decide maybe they've taken Aled back to Stillwater's, back to the retirement home. So she sends Chesney off there and he sods off for most of the rest of the episode. They go on the hunt. We missed him so much. Bernie asks Ed after Frida and he's like, I saw him in Victoria Gardens about an hour ago. So Gemma then has a video phone call with Frida's friend, which was quite cool. She had the camera propped up on the cabin window, didn't she? And I couldn't remember. I was supposed to look this up, but I didn't. Frida's got the key to the community centre somehow.
One thing
I don't know how that happened.
That was kind of interesting about this scene was that when we've seen Gemma previously signing with Frida, I kind of got the impression that she's completely fluent in sign language. But when she was talking to the sign language teacher, she didn't know a lot of what she was doing or saying.
Yeah, but it was also because it was on a tiny little video phone as well.
Yeah, but I think that she's not as good at sign language.
Well, what she lacks in vocabulary, she makes up for in gusto, doesn't she? As we said last week. So Frida's at the community centre, and then we cut to it. Yep, Frida is in there. She's locked herself in. She's reading Aled a story or something, or she's showing them a video or something, and
she's signing.
She's
to
signing
him,
to him, and she's saying, look, here's some deaf people. You're deaf, and I'm deaf, and they're deaf, and it's like she's.
I felt sorry for her.
Yeah.
I felt sorry for Gemma as well.
I felt sorry for everybody in this situation, but
not Chesney.
I think for the anti-Frida people out there, which there were certainly a whole lot of, we discovered this week on social media.
Yeah.
It kind of came across as if she was almost brainwashing him, indoctrinating him into this culture that he didn't necessarily have to belong to.
There are a lot of really weird takes about this episode.
I think all takes are valid, but we were very surprised.
I think there were some weird takes on this.
Anyway, so Gemma starts banging on the window. Eventually, so she's able to get Frida's attention, but Frida's like, "No, you're not coming because I'm not having you take Aled to go and get this cochlear implant put in because it's gonna distance him from the community." Blah, 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 blah.
No.
No,
she didn't say that at this point.
No, she doesn't. But I mean,
we should probably
can infer that this is why.
Use this moment to say that we don't condone kidnapping.
No.
Because
not really.
You end up with a kid.
He wants one of
those.
That's
not yours. Why would you take someone else's kid?
Why not try
You've
catnapping?
Got to feed them.
And I don't mean having a little sleep. Just steal a cat.
Let someone else. If you're going to steal something, I'd say money, because you can use that anywhere.
Maybe Frida's planning to sell Aled. She's one of these rare deaf children.
Really low maintenance money is. Never gives me trouble.
So inappropriate.
It's not having it that's the problem.
So Gemma goes and gets Lisa from the Rovers. She's having a chat with George or something.
The interpreter, the gobby interpreter.
Yes, and Lisa tries to reason with Frida through the door, but she's like, "No, I'm not coming out." Bernie.
But you missed out the really great line. She goes to the Rovers and Lisa's there with George. And she takes Lisa with her, and George is like, "Do you need me?" And she says, "No one's dead yet." Thought that was funny.
So Bernie is getting very irate by this point, starting calling Frida a baby snatcher and everything. Frida's saying, "People aren't listening to what I'm saying. They're rejecting Aled." She does the whole thing of
she gives a very impassioned speech.
They're the hearing people, but they're the ones that aren't listening. That kind of thing. She does. She starts saying that inside he is still deaf, and even if he gets these cochlear implants, he will still be a member of the deaf community, but he'll be kind of a half in, half out. They're taking this part of his identity away from him. She starts talking about when she grew up, she felt different. She struggled to lip read, which again, some people have taken to mean, so why are you subjecting Aled to this, to a life of difficulty? But she says, no, people just want to fix people like us, but we're not broken. And this is tying back to when Bernie said that she wasn't normal earlier. They want to make her normal all her life. They want to make Aled normal. Well, sorry, I feel normal. I'm me. Deal with it. And Aled, same. He is who he is. And even if he gets this cochlear implant, he's still not going to hear in the same way as hearing people. He's still going to miss things. He's still going to be spending the whole of his life asking people to repeat things. He's going to lose his confidence. He's going to spend his whole life pretending he understands people so that he can fit in and feel ashamed of his condition. But if we keep him the way he is, people will... he'll be part of a wider community. Yeah, exactly.
And he'll be completely in the deaf community, and they'll look after him, because at the moment, I guess, because cochlear implants are pretty new technology, there's not it doesn't feel like there's an established community of people who can support you.
No.
And I imagine everybody's going to be different with their cochlear implants too, because the technology might change. You might have an older, how does that work?
Yeah, get an upgrade.
I don't know.
I mean, if they're drilled into your skull.
But the receptors might change.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
No, we don't know.
So, and she says, if he gets this, then he'll spend, his childhood, his life, people focus on trying to fix his speech, so he'll miss out on the chance to, grow in other ways. He'll have a very set path. Why not keep him exposed to both the deaf community and the hearing community by, just allowing him to carry on as normal, really? Like,
she's
since
saying,
I've been able to do.
What she's saying is, in the deaf community, Aled will be a normal child.
Yeah.
In the hearing world you want him to live in, he won't be normal. He will be a child with a cochlear implant. He'll be a deaf child that can hear some things. And from that perspective, you think about what Frida's actually saying. She's part of the deaf world, and Aled is a normal boy there.
Yeah.
And she says, even there's a bit where she says, I want him to be a first-rate deaf boy, not a second-rate hearing boy.
Yeah, that was a good line. Yeah.
And I know a lot of people don't agree with that, and I don't necessarily agree with not giving him an implant at all. I think that would be a bad idea. But I certainly completely understand exactly what she's saying here.
So Bernie starts accusing Frida of being jealous and of Aled, saying, "Well, you're just projecting your difficult upbringing and your feelings and your desire to get out of the deaf community, and you can't. It's too late. And sorry, no, this is Aled's chance to make a difference, to turn a corner." And this is when she says that she wants him to be a first class deaf boy.
Well, also she says you want an implant.
Yeah, you want an implant, but you can't have one.
And
Frida's like, I don't want one. I've heard about them that they're not as good. You'll be able to hear the tweeting of the birds, but it will be mechanical, and he's not going to be really hearing. So if it's not real, then what's the point? And again, lots of people would disagree with that, and people might say, well, how does Frida know? And maybe this is just what she's been told and all this, but she's very, very passionate about it.
Well, it's not an uncommon belief in the deaf world.
So at this point,
I think it's important that everybody listens to what she's saying, even if you don't agree with her, because this is something I've been saying for months and months and months. When they first brought up Aled having a cochlear implant, I said this. So I'm really glad that they've represented this, but I'm so sad that it's been really misinterpreted by so many people.
Chesney turns up at this point saying, "What's going on? He wasn't at Stillwater's. What have I missed?" Alan's missed his operation. He starts knocking on the window as well. And then Rita turns up. This show is all about gingers coming along to save the day, isn't it? Is it Craigie? Is it Chesney? It's Rita comes over and she sympathises with Frida. She says, "Come out."
Rita's hair looks great. I wonder if she gets it done.
She says, "Alan's lucky to have you, Frida." They all are. She gets the lucky signal from Lisa, doesn't she?
Like a thumb to
the nose.
Against the nose.
Yeah. And then the police come along. Yeah, this is when... Yeah, this scene was all about just gingers turning up, wasn't it? They just unleash the gingers.
It's not very rare.
Chesney turns up first, then Rita, and then Craig's been out on a run, so he comes up a bit late than everyone else. Frida basically hands herself in, and she ends up with a slap on the wrist, we find out at the end of the episode.
I love this. It's like, you can kidnap one.
Yeah. You're a friend, it's okay, you didn't mean it.
I don't, it wasn't made clear enough to me that... Surely, Gemma or somebody had input into whether or not Frida was going to get charged with kidnapping. Because it doesn't seem right to me that she can just take somebody's baby away and the police are like, look, you were doing it's an impassioned speech, people weren't listening to you, I feel the same way. Sometimes people don't listen to you, you have to take their baby away from them. Really focuses their attention on you.
I don't know whether Gemma had anything to do with that. I can't remember whether they mentioned anything, but I know that she was tied up with Chesney for a bit during the end of the episode. Chesney's gone off on one, and Gemma's feeling a little bit more understanding of Frida's situation, and Chesney's like, no, we're not having her anywhere near our kid again. She's a nutcase.
One thing I want to say is that when Frida was saying this, I want Aled to carry on learning sign language, and I want Aled to understand his deaf heritage. Gemma was saying, yes, of course, I would never stop learning as a sign. I don't want to stop. And Chesney and Bernie were like, well, actually, it's kind of boring. And
Chesney's found it difficult, hasn't he? Yeah. He's never really got the knack of it. So he's thinking, well, if he gets this implant, then I don't have to try with that anymore.
Yeah, but I just wanted to point out that Gemma was agreeing with what Frida wanted. Yeah,
I think Frida's actions in this episode were certainly fueled in quite a large part by Bernie's behaviour, which she just so happened to overhear in true soap tradition.
Yeah, so really it's Bernie's fault.
It is all Bernie's fault. Not much to this story on Friday. It kind of gets mixed up with the funeral stuff, doesn't it? And whether Gemma's going to turn up to the funeral or not, which she does. They meet up at the bistro afterwards, and they're about the only two people that aren't arguing by the time we get to Norris's wake. They're going to be friends, and Gemma's going to get an app on the phone for teaching BSL or something. So, fortunately,
BSL app.
Yeah, there is. Fortunately for Aled, according to Gemma and Chesney, he can still get this operation. He wasn't
In a couple
put to
of
the
weeks.
bottom of the queue. Couple of weeks' time, he'll be able to get the implants. And I think Frida, by the end of it, is kind of accepting of this.
Yeah.
So it was all for nothing, really. Anyway.
What are we going to say about this?
Well, I think from what we've said so far, and what we've been, you put it on the Facebook group anyway, and I've stayed fairly quiet about it so far, is that I really, really loved Wednesday's
I thought
episode.
it was great.
My summary of Corrie on the whole this week was Monday was like Mrs. and stuff, wasn't that into it. Friday, I will reserve judgment until we get to the main story, but Wednesday, I bloody loved it. I was watching it going, this is a really strong episode. I've always loved Frida. I mean, she's been in the show for 10 plus years, on and off, obviously. And I always, she's just a character that clicked with me. She was kind of a bit cheeky and a bit fun to begin with, and the spatting that she had with Norris in the early days. When she came back a few years ago and did the whole and Mary did the whole urn toss thing, I think they'd made Frida go down a bit of a nasty route, which I didn't quite like, but I've really, really enjoyed her inclusion in this death storyline. I found the Aled story, the little snippets that we've seen of it, because it really has been snatches here and there this year, hasn't it? I found it fascinating, and I've really, really enjoyed learning about the deaf community. I've loved having all the British Sign Language on it, trying to work out what they're saying, and it's not anything that I've ever had to really think about before. I've not had any experience with deaf people in my life. I've not had deaf children in my class or anything, but I've really, really found it great. And so this episode, which was entirely dedicated to it, I was enthralled by it, honestly. I thought it was so good. And I've got this little document on our computer where I type down scenes that I particularly enjoy in the year, so at the end of it we can say, what was some of the best scenes of the year, and I loaded up Frida's speech scene thinking, this is bloody good. Whoever I can't remember who it was that wrote it. I probably should have found this out. I don't remember, possibly. And I was thinking, this is a really, really well written scene. I so sympathise with Frida. I think it was I mean, it's not going to be a Gail Ken BAFTA nominated speech or anything, especially not after the reaction it generally got on Twitter, but I thought it was fab. And then after the and we kind of turned to each other after the episode and we were going, that was good, wasn't it? Yeah, I love Frida. You love Frida. And then we went on social media afterwards.
It was like a dumpster fire.
It seems that most people did not agree with us.
No.
But I am standing by my decision on this. I stand by my viewpoint, and I totally get what people are saying, and I think, but people are saying that it misrepresented the deaf community. It's kind of taken their cause back 10 years because
I think that's
it's
wrong.
painting Frida as a kidnapper, and she, how dare she say that Aled shouldn't have his implant. It's not down to her. She's just some nosy old bat. Kid, she's stolen the kid. It's down to Gemma and Chesney, and they want him to have the implant and everything. But I was like, no, she knows what she's talking about. I like her, which probably doesn't count for much if I was defending her in court. But no, I thought it was great, and I felt so sorry for her. And there's the whole, she's going through the grieving process with Norris, which we were obviously supposed to take as an excuse for why she behaved somewhat erratically and irrationally on Wednesday's episode. But to be honest, I wasn't really even thinking about Norris too much while she was going through this. All I heard was somebody who was desperately trying to get people to see, to listen to her and hear her point of view, and just somebody who felt such a strong bond with their community, and this little kid who she's developed quite a soft spot for is being torn away from it. I loved it.
Yep.
And what do you have to say?
I don't know if this is going to offend some people, but I feel like there's a bit of a parallel here between perhaps people who adopt children from a different country or background or culture to theirs, and then are you going to teach your child about their because really deaf heritage is no less a culture or heritage than being from a different country. And if you're not in the deaf community, you don't know anything about it, you might not understand, but it really, really is a culture. It's a culture of its own. And, protecting it is what Frida wants to do. And it comes very naturally to people to defend their way of life and their culture. And if people are struggling to understand what Frida's trying to say, perhaps thinking of it in that way might cause you to view it differently, because Frida doesn't see being deaf as being just a disability or being a disability at all. In fact,
no, not at all.
It's it's something that makes things slightly more difficult for her to interact with people, but it's a culture.
And it's who she is. It's her down to
and
the core.
And it's who Alid is as well. And she panicked on Wednesday. And I don't want this to be an apology for kidnapping a kid. It's so stupid. I wish Coronation Street hadn't really done this part of it, because I feel as though people are not focusing on what Frida was actually saying, which is unfortunate, because she's been saying this for months. And she's been trying to point this out. And this is the first time anybody listened to her, because she kidnapped the kid.
Mm.
And even then people weren't listening to what she was actually saying. And some people on Facebook, on Twitter and things, were sort of accusing her of misrepresenting deaf people. But this isn't...
There's people who are saying, now people are going to say deaf people are all a bunch of kidnappers or whatever.
Why would you even think that? That's just
Some
such a
people are
prejudiced
saying
thing
that,
to
but
say.
not everybody, of course.
That's such a ridiculous thing, honestly, overblown thing to say. Nobody's watching that thinking that about deaf people. And if that's your concern, relax. That's not what's happening.
I think
the other I just think that people who are watching it and defending and attacking it to defend deaf people need to actually speak to deaf people and hear what they have to say about their culture, because I'm not saying that all deaf people think this either.
That's the thing as well, because we've
really
seen
have to make it
comments
obvious.
from different opinions from different areas of the deaf community.
Yes.
Some people have said, I'm deaf, I'm hard of hearing, I've got a hearing aid, whatever, and
It's
completely...
not the same thing.
No, sorry, I completely slate Frida. I disagree completely with what she's saying. How dare she try and prevent Alid from hearing? She's kidnapped him, lock her out, throw away the key. Yet we've had other people saying, I'm in the same boat as Frida, I completely sympathise with her. Why are people acting like she's being unreasonable here?
I sympathise with her, but I don't agree with her, and I certainly don't think that Alid should be denied cochlear implants. Another thing I saw were people saying, and it seems to be a lot of people talking on behalf of other people, and they don't really know if this is what people really think or not, which is kind of annoying. So you've got people saying you're damaging the deaf community without actually asking deaf people, and also people saying you're making parents who are getting cochlear implants for their child feel guilty. I don't know. I mean...
If you're in that position, you will have heard both sides of it. You'll have made that decision, and it's down to you. Just like it's down to Gemma and Chesney at the end of the day, which is why Frida can say what she wants, but she was wrong to stop it.
Gemma's still going to get these implants. So it's not. I would argue that I don't think that this is going to make people feel guilty, because they, like you say, will already be aware of the situation. It's just shining light on it for people who perhaps didn't ever think about this or consider it.
Yeah. At the end of the day as well, it is a soap. So when the whole kidnapping thing happened, I was like, ooh, it's a kidnapping, and maybe that's wrong.
It's a soap.
That's the same side of me who, when we had the trial story a few weeks ago, I was going, ooh, it's Imran versus Sabine. And other people were saying, no, get that out. That is disrespectful
to the Sophie Lancaster story.
Exactly, and I totally get that. But my soap-loving part of me is like going, oh yeah, the bit of drama, I love it. And it's characters that I'm interested in. And Gemma has really gone up in my estimations again this year. She I don't love her as much as I used to, but I'm not rolling my eyes and groaning when Gemma comes on the screen anymore. I'm actually quite liking it. I'm really, really loving how she's doing the signing, and I hope that she does keep it up. I don't know if he gets his implants, will they need to keep it up? That's the thing, and maybe this is what Frida's worried about as well. If he can hear, why do it? Unless, I mean, if she's got friends...
That's like asking, why would you want your child to be bilingual?
I suppose if they've got strong enough links with other children in the deaf community, they may well want to keep up with it. But if Gemma is fobbing off going to deaf playgroup, then I'm not sure whether she she really does that much.
Well, no, because she was trying to do the cochlear implant stuff.
Yeah, she was, but
because the operation was coming straight.
I don't know. I don't know whether Alad's got many deaf friends. He's so young, isn't he?
We don't know. We don't know anything about it.
He's what? He's 2 now, maybe, just about.
Anyway, I thought this was I really enjoyed this. I thought it was dramatic and fun, and soapy and silly, and poignant and overblown. I feel upset that the message didn't really land. I don't think it's fair to put the blame on anyone in particular. You know, you could say, oh, the writing, you know, the scenario shouldn't have been the kidnapping, or you can say people were not receptive to her message. You know, is it the viewer's fault? Is it the writer's fault? I don't, you know.
The question is, I suppose, could they have got the same message across from Frida and had her be as passionate as she was if she hadn't kidnapped the baby and she was just, you know, in a room with Gemma or something? And
you know, the only way I can think is, you know, running in front of them in the hospital and saying something. I don't know. This is the choice that they made with this storyline. It made it difficult for people to sympathise with Frida, and I don't think that a lot of people took much away from...
I would say as well, trapping her in the community centre gave her kind of a podium to say her piece, didn't it? And if there'd been anywhere else, people could have just ignored her. Screw you, Frida, I'm going, and ignored her again.
This is the thing. She said this. She's tried to say this multiple times before, and nobody's listened to her. At least this way, they had to listen to what she said, whether they agreed with her or not.
Something else that you mentioned as well about who to blame. Is it the writers or the storylines or whatever? I think it would be foolish to think that Coronation Street hadn't consulted members of the deaf community. We know that they did. This kind of story, you're not just going to say, yeah, maybe, I think I know a bit about deaf people, my granny was deaf, I'm going to write this, or you know, that they would have worked with and did work with people from the deaf community. Well, go on, what do we know?
Well, no, I don't want to reveal too much about...
I don't know how much has been revealed, but yeah, clear. They have... Coronation Street has...
people involved in this intimately are concerned with representing a deaf perspective.
Yeah, it wasn't just thrown together.
From a very knowledgeable point of view. You know, it's not somebody that's just done what I've done and watched a YouTube documentary and decided they're an expert.
It's not like, you know, the school one where it's like, oh, I went to school once, I can write a school scene with Daniel and Max, that's fine.
Yeah.
They did research about this, everybody. Some people think the same way as Frida. Some people don't.
Deal with it.
And for this, because they wanted to create the drama and the tension and everything, they decided to have Frida have an opposing view to Gemma and Chesney, and maybe it would have been a bit boring if they'd all agreed it would have been a good idea to have the cochlear implant.
I do find it quite bizarre how easily people seem to want to dismiss Frida's perspective on this. She's the expert on this. She knows what she's... How can you look at a deaf woman in the eye and just say, well, your opinion's irrelevant? I
think people are saying the same as Bernie, that she is jealous of Aled and she wishes this technology had been around when she was younger, and if it had, then you'd have jumped at the chance to get it. You're just projecting your fears onto him and everything. And maybe there is an element to that. The reason that she feels so passionately about the deaf community is that it has been a support to her for the last 60 years or whatever, so no wonder she's defending it so strongly.
I just have a lot of sympathy for her, and I don't think that we should stand in the way of progress and helping people like Aled to have a life that is less limited. But I can't, just as the same way I feel about other people who have cultures or lifestyles that are being phased out by the march of progress and time.
Well, you mentioned to me yesterday a good point, and maybe I don't think this is getting too insensitive or anything, or silly or sci-fi or whatever, but in the future, if everybody's got these chips in their brains that allows them to, you know, access the internet just through their brains or communicate telepathically with everyone, some people will say, no, I don't want that. Or maybe some people's bodies will reject these chips, but then a new chip comes and that will work with them. And actually, no, I prefer to be the chipless ones. Well,
just imagine, you know, in 50 years' time, they invent something that means that you can communicate telepathically with people, and it's just and everybody goes online, and you don't actually need to talk. We'll be like saying, no, I like
We'll
talking.
be the Friedas.
I want to be able to speak to people. I don't want to read your mind. I don't want you to read my mind.
No.
Our culture is not reading minds. I just think it's a bit of a weird... I don't know if it really comes across very well the way we're explaining it, but if you put yourself in the perspective of somebody, like you being left behind by technology moving forwards, and even if it would improve your life, it would fundamentally change who you are as a person, and that's what Frida's trying to say. You don't have to agree with her. This is what I think people don't understand. You don't have to agree. You just have to listen to her perspective and acknowledge. That's what she wanted. At the end of the day, Gemma's still getting the cochlear implant and Frida's fine with it, but she just wanted to be heard. And we keep saying heard, listened to, speaking up, all this, all these terms that aren't really suitable for a story about this, but it's a figure of speech, and I don't think Frida would mind.
I think she said it herself, didn't she?
The other thing I wanted to say, that I think that some really lovely little story details got missed in the kind of excitement of the kidnapping, but one of the things that I don't think that people might have picked up on too well is Alid's sign name, which Gemma had as AD. And when Gemma told Lisa, the interpreter, that was Alid's sign name, Lisa had this kind of disgusted look on her face.
I loved Lisa. I thought she was fab.
Some people didn't like her, but I thought she was brilliant.
Really great actress. I keep her. I just want everybody in this storyline to stay. I didn't expect this storyline to grab me and
well, there you go.
And interest me as much as it did.
Anyway, she said she used the name to Frida, but Frida had already given Alid a sign name, which was chub cheek, like a chubby cheek, like pinch your cheek. Now, the reason that Lisa was kind of to the sign name of AD is that it's a really crap sign name for a kid. I was looking on Reddit, and there was a user who seems to be part of the deaf community, and they basically said using AD to sign Alid's name is like calling your baby like baby A. It's like really unimaginative and almost an insulting, very anonymous kind of name. And it just demonstrated why Frida was so anxious about his future as a deaf child, because Gemma hadn't really understood or picked up on this sign name that he had been given.
And to be fair though, doing a little chubby cheek thing on a baby isn't the most original, is it?
I think your sign names will change. I think they change as you...
I would hope so, that by the time when he's, when he goes to university, when he's 18, what's your name? Oh, little chubby cheek.
But it kind of illustrates Frida's intense affection.
Yes. Absolutely, no, I totally agree. I jest, but definitely, and she did, and that's in a way as well why I wasn't so horrified by the fact that she kidnapped him.
You knew that nothing bad
soapiness aside, he was going to be fine, and I felt when she was showing him that story, the video or whatever, and she was like, "Okay, he's deaf, and you're deaf, and I'm deaf, and we're deaf together." I my heart melted for her, and I just felt so sad going online later and people, death threats to Frida and saying, I hope we never see Frida again. Bloody hate Frida. Frida's the worst Coronation Street character ever. This is the worst episode of Coronation Street, nay, television I've ever seen. And I'm like, no, I love Frida. I've always had, with a minor blip, a real affection for Frida. So maybe if I hated Frida before this, I'd be, singing from a different hymn sheet. Is that a phrase? No, you know what I mean. I don't know. It all just, all just was a bit of a dumpster fire mess, like you said. But it came from what I consider to be a really very well done episode of Coronation Street. And I'm sorry for all the people that are listening and shaking their head or maybe turned off at this point. But it's not often that
I understand why people didn't like this, and I get that Frida and other people like her, their opinions on cochlear implants. It's a very confronting and unexpected reaction. We're so used to disabled people or people with disabilities asking or being grateful for any kind of technology that can make their lives more easier. Yeah. we're not used to a disabled person saying, actually, no, I don't want that. This is how I am and I want to stay this way. And I think that not listening to them is such a massive mistake. And I think people are a bit prejudiced. And when they have those prejudice challenged, they don't like it. I honestly think that some people think, oh, you should be grateful. You should just accept it, the help. And, you know, you're making life more difficult for everybody else if you don't accept this help as well. I think there's an element of that.
I think that is for some people, but I don't want people listening to this to say that we're just, you know, slagging off everybody who hated the storyline. Absolutely not. You're very much entitled to that opinion.
You are entitled to, but some of those comments that I saw online definitely fell into that.
Yeah. Yeah, some of them did.
I find it... Yeah, okay. I don't... If you didn't like this storyline, that's cool, but you just do need to acknowledge that this is an opinion, whether you agree with it or not. It doesn't matter. This is the other thing. It doesn't really matter whether you agree with it or not, because honestly, and this is probably why Frida and people like her are so upset about it, the progress will, like a wave, wash this away. The deaf community is going, sadly, to decline because of cochlear implants. And a new community, this is the other thing that Frida probably hasn't really considered, that a new community will replace it of people who are deaf but can hear. And it's scary for Frida, this new world that she can't be a part of. And it's sad that deaf culture will change, but it's inevitable.
Yeah, no, it is. I agree. I
just insulted everybody.
No, we did give the warning at the beginning. We'd have some controversial opinions in this.
Well, the thing is, I think it was such a vitriolic response, and I felt as though a lot of it was misunderstanding what was being said.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the first to criticise Coronation Street. I do this podcast every week and I'd say what I like, but quite so often I'm like, that was rubbish, that wasn't funny, they were trying to be funny there, to try to add suspense there, it didn't work. So when something comes and grabs me and I really love it, I want to sing from the rooftops that I love it. And I hope that this isn't the last we've seen of Frida, but you know, with Aled maybe getting the implants, Norris's funeral happened, we could very well have seen the last of Frida now. So people who want to, you know, get rid of her, you've probably got your wish.
Some people thought it was preachy and some people didn't like it and thought that Frida was ranty. I hope maybe if you thought that, maybe listening to what we said from a different perspective might have changed your mind. If it hasn't, that's fine. It doesn't, you know, everyone can have their own opinion about this. But I think the reason why we spent a lot of time explaining our opinion is because I haven't really seen it said a lot online.
No, it's out there. I mean, I've definitely got a few people on our Facebook group that also really love Wednesday's episode as well. But that's what we thought.
Well, I don't want to be preaching. I don't want to put people down who didn't like it, because I'm also a bit annoyed that there was a potential here to teach people about a different point of view in a kind of less confronting and non-threatening way.
Yeah,
but it didn't. No. It wasn't done that way. It was done for maximum entertainment value.
That's the thing, and I was.
And we thought it was great, but then we were already receptive to what Frida was saying because of how much I've been bloody going on about this. And I just can't see the harm in allowing deaf people to express their opinions on this. But, hang on, I can see the harm in stopping a child from having an implant because you're ranting in a community centre and you've kidnapped the child in question. So, don't do that again, Frida.
I think she's learned a lesson.
I think she might have done.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
So what else has Frida been getting up to this week, Gemma?
I just feel like I've upset a lot of people.
No,
I said to you earlier in the week, I didn't want to talk about this.
I think we've explained ourselves pretty well.
I said I'm kind of fed up with Coronation Street doing these issue storylines that force us to have these conversations
about subjects that we're not.
We don't know anything about it, and I'm only trying my best to learn as we watch the programme. And everyone's allowed their own opinion on things. It just gets I just get fed up with talking around in circles about stuff.
Well, let's move on then, because this next storyline
is going to offend people that don't think funerals are comedy.
Coal in a hole, Gemma.
Understand.
Did he get buried or did he get cremated in the end? I don't think we knew.
Because Coronation Street hasn't really thought about the people who all also this week were burying their favourite newsagents.
Go on, over to you.
On
There
Monday.
may well be bits in these notes where they should be in the notes for the other one. For example, my first note here says, Frida tells Rita she's booked the interpreter. That should be in the other storyline, really, but there was crossover. It was
I
Frida.
like the way that Frida booked Lisa for the funeral so that Norris's friends could understand what was going on, and literally she was the only one
I know.
who was watching Lisa when she was, because there was a bit where Billy was talking and we saw the audience from his from the view of the
viewpoint,
coffin, and everyone was looking at Billy apart from Frida, who was looking at Lisa. But anyway,
So selfish.
she's so selfish.
But she's not. Lisa was doing it for free, wasn't she? I think she said earlier this week. So
George brings the orders of service for Frida to look at, but he's got the date of birth wrong, and
drama.
Frida's mad. This didn't help. She was anxious about the funeral.
Yeah, she was
People
mad
weren't.
about everything that happened
And
with
Mary
Mary as well. Yeah.
was taking charge. You know, going back to the previous storyline, she felt completely out of control about everything. But the only thing that was kind of something that could never be undone was Ali getting his cochlear implant, and I think that she focused on the only thing that she could control, which was not necessarily the thing that was her business.
Yeah, well, she couldn't bring Norris back to life this week.
Oh dear.
He was nailed into that coffin, wasn't he? Couldn't open the coffin.
Well, they sealed it. I tried to look this up.
Can you unseal the coffin?
I tried to look this up, and I think there's like a ceremonial and administrative process that actually happens when you seal a coffin. I don't think it's just bang a few nails in and go
If
home.
it was, then that's how you solve the vampire problem, isn't it? Wait until they go to bed, hammer a few nails, and it's like, sorry, mate, you're stuck in there now.
Well, if only you'd been around when they were doing Dracula. George tells Mary what's going on, and she offers to go to the viewing because Frida's not up for it, apparently. And then she's been to see him. She's teary. She witters on about there's a flickering light in the chapel of rest.
She doesn't want to kind of talk about it. She's wittering on about this flickering light
think it
because
was
she
a
doesn't want to. She doesn't want to talk about her true feelings.
Well, he says he doesn't look like he doesn't look like
this is a lovely scene. Go on, sorry.
He doesn't look like she remembered him, and this is when George does a really touching mini speech about he doesn't look like he used to because the things that made him Norris have left, and it's just his body behind, and all the things that you remember will live with you as long as you remember him.
I thought that was the best scene
I
of
think
the
he did
whole
that.
week in this story, and maybe that's giving my early thoughts on how Fridays went, but I thought that was so well done. Mary was toned down. She wasn't her usual wailing storytelling self. It was some raw emotion about her real lovely friend who's gone, and it did spades for George's character as well, because he wasn't there pulling his faces or anything. He was showing that he did have a bit of sensitivity to him. Actually, he could do the serious scenes. I really, really appreciated that scene.
Ken's written an obituary for the Gazette, and Frida's feeling a bit insecure about everything because everybody had history on the street, and she
Norris
barely
had
knew
history
him.
on the street. She's like, I'm here with all his friends, and I've only known him for a little bit, but you've known him for so long. I feel like I'm an outsider or something.
On Wednesday, George tells Frida that he and George are going on a deaf awareness course. And I think he said it like, I'm going on a deaf awareness course. She says she wants to see the body. See, this is what I think kind of triggered the kidnapping. She wanted to see the body, but the coffin's already been sealed, and Todd tried to ring her, but he left a bloody voice message. By the way, Michael, you're going to say...
I would say that most phones probably, and I only know iPhones. Gemma got a new iPhone today, everybody. She's got an iPhone 13 Pro. You can get your phone to transcribe voicemail. So when Frida's
I'm
like,
sure
how
she
am I
would have
supposed
had
to... She would have
the
had this.
technology and the knowledge that she could... But anyway...
Never mind.
Also, this is my first new phone for 6 years, so...
Gemma's last phone was an iPhone 6S, and she was kind of overdue.
Yes. I don't know why you're telling people I've got a new iPhone.
I don't know, just some new things that have happened to us.
People are going to come and steal my
Got a
iPhone
new house,
now.
got a new phone.
Mm-hmm. Billy gets the okay to do the service. He goes over to see Audrey. He's looking through photos. Gail phones up because she's coming back for it, everyone. Gail's not here. and she's got bad hair. How can you tell? She comes through the door, she's got a hat on.
Yes, she's back.
Then she puts
Back
on
from Thailand for Norris.
she puts on a towel, not very well, and they have a little bit of a sad moment and they reminisce, and it was very nostalgic.
That was nice, yeah.
And really well done, and I think a lot of people, that was their favourite moment of Wednesday's episode.
Yeah,
and I honestly
that,
also
actually.
think that people were so mad about the Frida stuff, and it's fine if you're mad about the Frida stuff. I feel really bad. I don't want anyone to feel like I'm diminishing your...
You're really not. I think
you
people...
can be mad about it, but just hopefully the bits about Alid's sign name will kind of might interest you if you didn't pick up on it, because you were so furious. I don't know. Anyway, that was a really good moment, and I think it got lost, like I said, with the fury of Frida being a kidnapper. Roy and Bernie end the episode talking about the funeral, and Roy's hoping it will be a fitting send-off.
For an old friend. Thought that was a dramatic pause there.
Energy.
We finished this story. We're going to get another drink again.
On Friday, Rita's put the picture of Norris up in the Paperboy thing.
The little stand.
Normally there'd be a sign in there that's like aliens land on Red Wreck. Brian said, local resident Brian says, told you so. Or cat stolen from
isn't it
Bistro.
MLN scheme brought down by
local journalist.
Lucky journalist. But isn't that all about Norris today?
Parking scandal rocks Weatherfield.
Yes, that's the other one, isn't it?
This time it says, goodbye old friend. Or, how about this? What it should say is, deaf woman kidnaps baby, gets slap on wrist.
Yeah, there's a massive cover up there, wasn't there? She probably was number one.
She's got friends in high places.
Well, Rita was the one, she sympathised with Frida, didn't she? She was the one that came. So she's like, I'll cover that up, I think.
She and Audrey talk about how they broke the mould when they made him.
Norris, not the Paperboy. I hope they didn't break the mould when they made the Paperboy, because they need another one. I'm mad about it.
I don't know if I'm sadder about Norris or the Paperboy this week. I've really got to stop sitting my grief here. They all gather. Mary is wearing her Star Wars outfit, which was to do with getting married or something.
It was when she and Norris were getting married. Remember that brilliant storyline, everyone, that wasn't at all utterly ridiculous? They decided to pose for a variety of photos to make out that they were in love and they had lovely, great times together. And one of them
was like Green Card.
And one of them was a staged photo of them dressed as Star Wars characters. So this is a bit of a callback to that.
You get madder and more emotionally invested in getting morally judgmental about that story than Frida kidnapping Alid. That goes. If you didn't know our priorities were completely skewed, now you do.
They should have just wheeled out old Vic Reeves for this story. Actually, where was he for the morning? Continue.
Thank you.
They go to the chapel.
Can I just say how mad I am also that in my mind, the funeral carriage arrives, this kind of black hearse with the horses, and on top is the stapler, the floral tribute in yellow. And I'm really mad because in my head, the stapler was open.
Really?
And it was closed on the top of the coffin. And I had this really vivid picture in my mind of the stapler open. And when it was closed, I was like, that's not a stapler. Oh yeah, that's what they look like.
Staplers are generally closed.
I know they are.
I imagined it bigger.
Well,
I thought that was a nicely done scene.
It was a disappointment all round, wasn't it?
That was quite a touching moment. Everyone's standing out, paying their respects. Leanne gets her episode count, by just making an appearance. She does a little nod. Yeah. Also, as an ex-cabin employee, Leanne.
Yeah. They're all in the chapel later, and Claudia is talking about how Norris used to play badminton. And Audrey has a hip flask and Gail takes a drink of it and she's expecting brandy. Actually, it's tequila. Billy is there because he's a vicar and this is probably the first vicaring he's done.
He's the archdeacon, don't you know?
Oh,
Norris
sorry.
should be honoured.
He is honoured. This is the first proper archbishoping we've ever seen him doing.
Yeah, no, not deacon, archdeacon. Deacon. He's not the Archbishop of Canterbury. He couldn't come.
Is arch? I always thought arch was under, but it's not. Is it above? Like I always thought the archdeacon is like lower than the deacon.
I don't know.
No, higher. Is it higher or lower?
Yeah. Well, archbishop is more than a bishop, isn't it?
The Archbishop of Canterbury is like the head guy, apart from the Queen. But the
archangel Gabriel is at the top of the angels, isn't it?
Yeah, but why is the archbishop?
Maybe.
Why is the archdeacon not higher than a deacon then?
I don't know.
What does arch mean?
I don't know. Doesn't matter. What's Billy get?
I thought arch was like an arcane way of being like super uber, like the uber deacon.
Well, what if you're my my arch enemy? Something about super enemy.
That means you're the worst one.
Yeah,
so maybe the archdeacon's like the worst deacon.
Yes, and that's why they gave the job to Billy. We've solved this,
I
everybody.
get it. He's the archdeacon. He's like the deacon's worst enemy. Okay, that makes sense now. Okay, we've cleared it. We've cleared it up. Norris has left instructions for how he wanted everything to go, and the first is everybody singing The Rivers of Babylon. Classic tune.
So we learn as the service goes on that Norris decided to put all the songs on there that he didn't like because he doesn't have to be there to listen to it.
Oh,
which I kind of liked.
Well, Where's Angels by Robbie Williams.
Yeah, if I went there, I'd have Angels, I'd have My Way, I'd have all the classics.
Rita stands up to say her bit as Gemma arrives, and Rita talks about working with him, how he was with her during her brain tumour problem.
Hashtag save Rita.
And she's going to miss him. And then Billy says...
Do you remember when everyone was hashtag save Rita in? I think, remember we kind of thought, we were a little bit worried that this was going to be the end of Rita.
She's fine.
5, is it 5? How long's it been? 3, 4, 5 years later?
A while.
Still going strong.
Billy says, Norris wrote down his final speech, and he wants the pillar of the community to read out. A man that everyone admires and thinks very highly of. And Ken's like...
He's straightening his tie.
Arrange my cufflinks. And then he says, and Roy, Norris wants you to read it. So Roy gets up and reads it out.
That was quite like at Derek's funeral, wasn't it? Because, is it in that one that Ken... Was it that Ken was supposed to be saying a speech at Derek's funeral, and then Norris is the one that jumps up? I can't remember who it was now, but Norris definitely wasn't supposed to do the speech at Derek's funeral, and he leaps up there. So I wonder whether it was a callback to that as well.
Norris says, I have had a wonderful life. Thank my loved ones, like Frida. Had some fun times with you. You badgered me about organising my funeral. I've chosen songs I don't like. And then he says this bit to Mary, and where he says, you always used to moan at me about my funeral, and I said I wanted you to wear Princess Leia outfit as a joke, but you would never be so stupid as to do that. She's sitting there in her Princess Leia outfit with her arms folded, looking really grumpy. Then he says, my secret is I've got something hidden inside the paper boy. Here's my last word to the sunshine of my life, Rita. There was always a bit of sexual tension between us, but I think we got away with it. And the final thing I will reveal is that she used to go to Claudia's to get her colour done, and Audrey, by this point, is completely off her face. And she starts ranting at Rita, and they all get back to the bistro for the wake. Audrey's still knocked off. Ken tries to shush them up. Audrey huffs off. Rita does a monologue about being old, and it's not everything it's cracked up to be, but I've heard bad things about it all round, to be honest.
He's like, who's going to be next? There's only a few old characters left in the programme.
I know.
And we're basically all here.
Oh, God. Ken finds a weepy Mary, and they say, let's go look inside the paper boy, and they can't figure out how to get inside, so Mary has an idea, and she gets a chainsaw, but she's too drunk to operate it, so Brian takes over, chops the head off, there's nothing inside. It turns out that it was all a ruse, because Norris hated the paper boy, and he wanted them to destroy it. And then they sing goodbye.
Not the Spice Girls song.
Goodbye, my friend. I
thought that the funeral was a load of rubbish.
Did you?
Yeah, and we haven't spoken about this, have we? We basically just watched the episode and started recording, so I'd got no idea what you thought, but I was so let down by it. It wasn't as silly as it could have been, but it was fairly silly. And last week on the podcast, I talked about something that I'd seen which gave me kind of a bit of nervous feelings about how this was going to go, and that was Mary dressed in a Star Wars Princess Leia get-up, and I thought, if that's setting the tone for the funeral, it's not going to be a good time. And to be fair, I thought that maybe it would have been like mega uber silly with her dressed up like that, which I think was completely ridiculous and stupid. And why would she wear that?
Did you?
I thought it was so silly.
So stupid.
But it wasn't. But
baby.
But the stuff with Audrey having a drink, that just didn't fit. And I feel like I'm being a bit of an old fuddy-duddy conservative grump again, like when I was saying, they disrespected Pat Phelan's memory a few weeks ago. But I thought this kind of was to Norris as well. And I know he was a comedy character and everything, but I'm not against always having comedic funerals. I thought that Lewis Archer's funeral was fantastic when all the old widows were having a tussle with his coffin. I loved that, but it just did not hit the right notes for me in the slightest. And some of it was because Mary there, and some of it was Gail. How to make something less serious, bring Gail back for it to pull some silly faces during it in inappropriate moments. And then the bits that were supposed to be serious, they just didn't hit the right notes for me, and I'm not sure what it is, but I wasn't feeling like, oh, Norris, I'm so sad that you're gone, and I didn't have, my wobbly bottom lip or anything. It just left me cold. Was it the script? Was it the performance? I'm not really sure.
Wobbly bottom?
I think maybe I didn't really enjoy the fact that Roy was reading out the letter, because it was supposed to obviously be a very kind of warm and loving letter, and having Roy being the one reading it out in his Roy way, the emotion didn't particularly come across, and I think maybe Ken would have been a better choice. There's a whole load of little threads of this that built up to me thinking, nah, that was a miss.
Roy definitely did read it like, I am reading out a piece of paper and I have not had a chance to read it before now.
Yeah, which he would. He read it completely in character and suitable for the moment. But I think that some of the emotion and some of the words, because the words were pretty nice, and it sounded like it could have been Norris and all the stuff about Rita, Sunshine of My Life.
See, I don't know. I was listening to it, trying to imagine Norris saying any of this, and I just thought it doesn't sound like Norris to me at all.
I think you're probably right, actually. I think I just had to try and give it some props, but you're right.
Frida's got me into watching romantic comedies now, and I was thinking, what are you talking about?
I mean, to be fair, Norris may have changed in the last couple of years that we've not seen him.
But that's weird, though, because it wasn't a funeral for Norris of Shady Town. It was a funeral for Norris of Coronation Street.
Yeah, the character that we have known and loved for the past 25 years.
So having him... I don't know.
It
didn't really feel like it was Norris's voice talking to me.
As I suppose the direct comparison is after Blanche's funeral, we had the letter being read out, her will or whatever, where she was like saying, "Oh, Norris, I wanted you here because I can't remember what was it saying. I wanted you here because I wanted you to."
Don't remember.
I wanted you to hear that you're not getting anything, or you always wanted to get the gossip before everyone else. I can't remember. There was something. I'm remembering it badly, but I definitely heard Blanche's voice there, and you're right. Actually, this maybe didn't sound quite like Norris, but that's not one of the big issues I had with it, honestly. How did you think of it? Did you feel the same, or did you actually quite like it? Am I wrong here?
We're wrong about everything.
Am I being harsh? This is why I said this is going to be controversial, because I think that generally, and I've only seen a little bit of reaction online, people seem to really like this Norris funeral, and then they hated the Frida stuff. I was the complete opposite. What did you think of the funeral?
I thought it was funny that the picture of Norris was the one with him hugging a cat that he didn't know.
Oh yeah, he's so well known for his love of cats. I can't even remember who it was. He had to look after somebody's cat for a couple of weeks back 20 years ago. I don't remember.
See, sometimes for the magazine, I'll do like an image search for like a title, and I use a pic, and I know we've used this pic loads of times, but it's a really good picture. I think the same thing's happened with Norris in that picture of the cat. Like, they go, this is just always on the top of the search results. Just use that one. It is a
fairly commonly used stock image of Norris, to be fair.
But it did make it also look a little bit like he'd been buried with the cat. Like it was a funeral for Norris and the cat, and they'd both died in a horrible accident. See, the cat had run across the train line, and Norris had gone to get it, and they both got run over by a train.
I'm trying to think of what other Norris stock images, and I know for podcasting purposes it's not so good, but there is one of him kind of snooping
Peering
around the
around,
corner in the cabin. And that one,
that in the funeral, like a picture of him snooping on his own funeral.
yeah, and then there's another one of him standing with a brush or a mop or something. So I don't know.
The thing about all the stuff reading out, you know, and it didn't sound really like Norris because it was very kind of relaxed and friendly and nostalgic. And, you know, he seemed like he's chilled and changed because he likes rom-coms now and everything. He died spying on Claudia in a bush. He hasn't changed at all.
Very true.
In fact, if anything, he's got more enthusiastic about being a snoopy gossip.
Did you get the emotion? Did you think?
I didn't
you feel
find
you were
it
affected
sad.
by it? No, that's the thing. And funerals in Corrie can obviously leave you sad.
I found
and they have done in the past.
The Norris, Goodbye Norris icon. Program that ITV produced more poignant.
Yeah, I mean, I'm again.
I was just mad about the Paperboy.
Well, let's talk about that then. When they brought out that there was a secret hidden inside the Paperboy, I mean, partly in my head I was thinking, how is there a secret inside the Paperboy? That doesn't make sense. But part of me was like, ooh, what's this? And then part of me thought, has Annie Walker left a message inside this Paperboy saying that the cabin secretly belonged to
Dennis
Mavis or Dennis Tanner all along, and then we're going to have the whole Betty debacle like they did after she died. But honestly, by the time they started looking at the Paperboy, in my head it was like, Norris just wants them to destroy the Paperboy, doesn't he? So that whole twist at the end is like, yeah, I saw that coming. And I don't know whether it was obvious or whether I just got a lucky...
Are they going to fix it? Because his head came off completely. They just had the head on the ground like a decapitated Paperboy.
Just get some of that coffin sealant that George uses, because that's pretty tough stuff, apparently.
And I think that really, we're being quite patronising. I think that's a paper man. He's quite portly, isn't he? He's not a boy.
It was weird seeing him naked.
Disrobed.
He was a very oddly proportioned boy under there.
I guess it makes sense that he is not of a normal human stature.
I mean, he doesn't get much exercise, does he? He does just stand around.
It looks like he's waiting for a pie to be fed into his mouth.
Yeah, wide open mouth.
Oh,
well, you said when they were looking for what's the secret, they're going to look inside his mouth and reach in.
Literally, they went, oh, let's look into the Paperboy and find the secret, and then they peer in his mouth and dunno then.
There wasn't anywhere where there could have been a secret, which is why I thought, yeah, Norris just wants... They're going to say that Norris hated it, and whatever. I hope that they keep it, because that Paperboy is a Corrie icon who has been on the show longer than Norris has, actually.
How dare Norris take him out on the as he
early
leaves.
90s, maybe.
Anyway, there was also a bit with Frida who put a hummingbird...
Oh yeah! Oh, that was a great line.
I don't think she got to in the end because it sealed the coffin, but she wanted to annoy him.
Did somebody find it on the floor when during the kidnapping stuff? But yeah, she said, "Oh, put it." Yeah, because I can't remember why, but to
annoy him.
She did say, "I'm going to put it in there, and maybe it'll hum and annoy him." But
that Frida's so horrible,
story
isn't she?
that she had behind that. So yeah, I hope that the Paperboy will be fixed.
Some people will like it, and some people will hate it.
He has been repainted over the years. Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame because when I think back to other... I just can't help compare with Derek's funeral back in 97. I know it was a long time ago, but that worked so much better. And Mavis was there as the grieving widow, and that's when Norris stood up and he did the speech, and there was just the right amount of comedy. And I just think that the amount of kind of gurning and silliness and face pulling and Ken going, oh, be quiet, this is a funeral, be respectful. Just didn't hit the mark for me, I'm afraid. But again, I am very pleased for everybody who did like it and thought that it was a touching tribute. Anything else to add about Norris?
Are you pleased and happy for people that hated Frida's kidnapping?
No, I'm sad for them. Although maybe I should be happy because he's getting his cochlear implants in the end in a couple of weeks anyway.
Yeah, he's going to be alright.
Yeah. Okay, right. What do you want to do? Do you want to stop for a drink? I need to
have a coffee. I'm going crazy.
We're going to have a pause. We're going to have a drink. Not even going to play the music. It's just going to sound like we're carrying on, but we're not. We'll be rehydrated. Let's talk about the next story. let's carry on with the next story. Time has certainly not passed, and I have not made a cup of tea for myself or a cup of coffee for Gemma. Gemma still hasn't drunk the coffee yet, so she's still falling. She's still yawning widely by my side at the moment. Maybe she'll perk up as the next story goes on.
I'm tired of life.
I think my controversial opinions have finished now. I'm going back to stories that I don't have much of an opinion on, which is what's he up to then.
But one thing I think is not controversial is that everyone agrees that Zidane's hair is...
I think you're right. You're right.
That's a good way of putting it.
I'm not saying anything.
It's striking.
Helmet's like.
Striking.
So, Monday was all about Zidane, really, and after last week's everything. What happened last week? Oh, Alia got defrauded after seeing a tarantula and and giving her PIN number out over the phone or something, didn't she? Which I didn't even pick up. But anyway, Alia, I did not know what was going on. There's still, even this week, there were a few scenes where I was like, what happened in that scene? We're both really tired again. So tired.
I can't.
Oh man. Right, so Alia's worried. She hasn't heard from these fraud people yet, and Zidane's like, don't worry, you got my cash. I'm gonna give you all the money you need because I'm loaded now. And she's like, why are you so rich? I don't understand this. And he says, I've made some good investments or something or other like that.
Deflect suspicion, he just needs to say, I invested in crypto.
And no, you just need to say, soap windfall. And she's like, oh, it was your turn, was it? I was wondering whose turn it was going to be next. So, windfall, fine, I get it. So, Zidane gets stalked by these two shady-looking blokes in a van later. They're kind of following him as he goes into the cafe. Well, he's following him with their eyes. He has words with Ryan for hurting Alia and dumping her and everything like that. And then they start having an argument, and he says, and Zidane's like, you're probably off your head on drugs, just like that junkie brother of yours when Jeff was setting fire to the house. And Alia jumps in and is like, oh, well, hang on a minute. Whoa there, slow down. But she basically was able to stop a fight starting between Ryan and Zidane. And she says, Zidane, you can stick your money.
Who do you think would win?
Shine. Probably Zidane at the moment, because like I was saying last week, he is
jacked.
He is jacked, but then so is Ryan.
Yeah.
They're both jacked. I think that they'd punch each other and their fists would meet and they'd just send shockwaves and that would go rippling back through their arms and their heads would explode. It would be like the Matrix, I think. So, Elaine invites Kathy out to the shops, is she? Yeah, that's right. Elaine wants to buy Yasmin and Alia a present. I can't remember what happened. Oh, yes, I remember now. They go off shopping somewhere. They go to the Arndale or something. Is it? No, was it her birthday or was that last week? I don't know. No, you might be right. I don't remember. This is Monday. This is ages ago.
Oh my god.
So, Yasmin says to Alia, are you sure about turning this offer down? We kind of need some money and it's being offered to us on a silver platter here. What's up? And Alia says, yes, I've had enough of men with pathetic egos willy wagging. That's how I screwed that up there. Willy waggling at me. Willy waggling. Which is a great line. I can't believe they said Willy on Coronation Street. I wasn't warned about this.
Waggling. It at me.
Yeah. There was that. That was the scene that not only had Willy waggling, but it also had Charlie Big Potatoes, didn't it?
Yeah.
That was great.
Well, if you want to willy waggle at me by giving me 50 G's, I will take it, but I also say pathetic.
Put it away. Do your flies up, mister. Zidane comes in and says, sorry about embarrassing you in front of Ryan earlier. Sorry for waggling my willy at you. And she says, okay, I accept. I will take your cash because that'd be quite handy, actually. And then they're going to have a nice meal with Yasmin later. So Zidane has to go and get some supplies for the shop. He has to go up to the co-op, doesn't he? I assume that's where it is.
He wants some more ale. Find out about that later.
We haven't recorded the cabin section earlier today. Definitely not.
He's gone to get our ale.
This is just like cobbled together. This is jigsaw together, this podcast tonight. So he gets jumped by these two thugs and gets dragged down Villain's Alley and gets kind of beaten up and not at all socially distanced beaten up as well. So PCR really test ahoy. So on the way, I've said that line already.
Alia tells
Yasmin, Have you noticed that Zidane's been acting very odd since he came back? You noticed that a bit of a
Yasmin's like,
personality transplant
really only
since he was in the
noticed
show
his hair.
before. Yeah, I'm not looking.
I'm just dazzled.
I can't think of anything
I
else.
can't take my eyes off of it.
And then they go, oh, he's not back yet. I've not seen his hair recently. I wonder where he's up to. I'm going to try phoning him. So she gives
Ring,
Zidane a
ring.
ring, but his phone
Ring,
is
ring.
on the floor. It's ringing. I couldn't tell
Ring,
at that
ring.
point whether he was there next to it, but he
Ring,
was.
ring.
Shut up. So Kathy and Elaine come back from their shopping trip later, and very luckily for everyone concerned, they spot unconscious Zidane on the floor of Villains Alley. That's the one
his
next
hair's
to the
messed
funeral
up.
parlour, by the way.
He's going to be so upset when he wakes up and he's got to have another shower to straighten it out.
So Elaine rushes to go and tell Yasmin about it. He gets whisked off to hospital where he gets visited by Alia and Simon, the lucky duck.
Oh, wow.
So Simon has got it into his head that Ryan's behind all this because
He's jealous of
yeah,
his hair.
exactly.
I know, I'm really ragging on this, but I think he doesn't care what I think about his hair.
No.
And I strongly suspect that there is an element of style that I can't quite fathom being a nearly 40-year-old woman.
Exactly. It's like you...
Nobody cares what I think about man's hairstyles.
No, you're past it.
Yeah.
So...
Short back and sides. That's what he needs.
I need a haircut because did we say
Your
last week
hair's growing horizontally again.
we're recording in the bedroom again in the new house where we've got our mirrored wardrobes which we're going to get rid of because Gemma hates them. So I'm sitting here watching myself and I really do need a haircut, but I don't want to get a haircut too much because it makes me look bolder at the front again.
Oh no!
God,
If only
I'm
you had
getting old.
Zidane's beautiful
God, I'm
luscious
getting very
locks.
old. Right, Craigie turns up to the hospital, takes a statement there. He's going to go and speak to Ryan because they're saying, yeah, it's Ryan what done it. And Alia says, no, Ryan would never do anything like this. And Zidane says, maybe you don't know him as well as you thought.
Anyone's capable of anything on this programme, even snatching a baby, and even just not bothering to worry if somebody snatches a baby.
Yes.
Just saying it's fine and justified.
Yes.
As long as you've got a passionate defence.
So they bugger off from hospital a little bit later. And then Zidane gets a phone call from a heavy breather, doesn't he? Somebody fancies him. I think it's Don Brennan because he's got form for this. Thank you. I think it's just somebody sitting in our house at the moment because it is still quite hot. What?
Dude, what? See, a woman gets a a phone call like that. They're like, right, bugger off, Perv, and put the phone down. What would you think? Like, is it different for a man?
I don't know.
They're like, I'm not used to this.
How would I be
I'm
confused?
flattered by the attention. You know what? They always say it's just like flowers.
Would it be like
They never give it to men.
Would it be a feminine kind of heavy breathing, like?
No, I think that men would like that. Is that what you think women do when they finish running a marathon? When they get their medal, they're like going, oh, sorry, I'm just a bit out of breath.
Yeah, I'd love it. So, do we find out anything more about that? I don't remember. So, Ryan comes bursting into number 6 after flattening Alia against the wall.
Like a little bug.
Have you seen this, everybody? Did you notice this? And we didn't notice it at the time, but you found it on Twitter or something that you showed me. Ryan bursting into the house and Alia is yeah.
I don't think it was me.
Oh no, it wasn't you. It was somebody else.
Somebody else.
Somebody else showed us this, yeah, that was quite funny. I don't think they were supposed to show that. And yeah, he's been interrogated by Craigie.
The show was not supposed to show that.
No, I think she was supposed to be just hiding behind the door, but it did look like she was getting flattened by it. And he pushes the door hard because, like we said, he's got big strong arms. He's like, as if I'd come after you. I'm nice, Ryan. Even Alia starts saying, though, at this point, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe it was you. And Yasmin says, no, he is not that kind of person. Ryan says, well, you weren't even here during this whole big Jeff storyline. And that was a big storyline. And don't tell me you didn't know about it because it was on the front of all the soap magazines and everything. What's your excuse?
No
and he's
excuse.
like, oh, it's going, got marriage and everything. Anyway, Ryan's got an alibi for during the day today, so he couldn't have done it. So there, bad luck, Zidane. Alia tells Zidane, you've changed. You're not the same Stan you used to be back a couple of years ago. Why aren't you out on the streets trying to find who did this to you? The old Zidane would have done that. And I was thinking, I don't know whether he would actually.
I don't think he would have done.
But anyway, his phone rings. He ignores it. And when Alia tries to grab it, he's like, Mind your own business. This is the new iPhone 13 Pro and it's not even out yet until the end of the week. Get your greasy mitts off of it.
Go down the EE shop and get one.
The EE shop. We saw that this week, didn't we? We saw the boards. It was coming up. So Zidane has a little bit of a confession at the end of the episode that he and his wife have separated. Alas, we never even got to meet her. Miriam was her name or something like that. And her father-in-law wasn't so happy when he found out that he left her, and he started making death threats.
His father-in-law.
Yeah, his father-in-law.
Her father-in-law's
Her
dead.
dad. Yes, he is. Poor Cal, alas. Anyway, it was his wife's brothers who came after him earlier.
AKA his brother-in-laws.
Yes, exactly.
I don't know why he said it in such a roundabout way. Like, oh, it was my wife's
My
dad's
wife's
son.
sons came to beat me up.
Okay.
Is there a word for that? Wednesday, Alia is kind of still surprised that Zidane's not really reacting over the whole splitting with the wife thing. And he's like, well, yeah, hands up. I had enough there.
It was me
But I'm like,
shagging around.
I was willy wagging again, what can I say? I just
You know
happened to
what
waggle
she
it somewhere.
No, she
towards
went,
this
she went,
other woman.
"Oh."
And that's on a new,
And
right?
you misinterpreted it, but she'd actually just been for a run.
So Yasmin comes in. She's like got it in her head that she wants to contact Fringe McBangs, doesn't she, about this beating? Because she's an excellent police officer, apparently.
She solves every case.
She does. She's very, very good.
100%.
Yeah. Not like that
no.
McKinnon. And he's like, I don't really want to get the police involved, actually. And then this is when he comes out. He says, oh, yeah, I kind of... He says, oh, my wife thinks that I cheated on her.
Yeah.
But then by the time the
No,
next
but
scene comes along, he's kind of admitted, yes, I did.
Yeah, but it's not wrong. It's not purely accurate, is it? Well, it is accurate, but it misses out the crucial point
But it did actually
that,
happen.
that she thinks it because I did.
He's no better than Imran Habib.
Oh, what a bunch of willy wagglers.
He is. Imran's a total willy waggler.
Charlie Big Potatoes off, having a shag around.
Yeah. What's going on with that? That's just delaying my pain. I want to know what happened with Imran and Sabine and that nothing
You don't
happened.
want to know.
I need this to be over with.
They went on a run together.
In the cafe later, Zidane's trying... Not the cafe, Speeddale, sorry. Zidane's trying to show Yasmin, if I give you this £50,000, this is what I think you should do with it. He's got like business projection for her, but she is not impressed by this, and she says, I'm not going to turn a blind eye to your shameful behaviour, grandson. However much money you are, however much willies you waggle at me, I'm not having it. And so Zidane then goes and apologises to Ryan for accusing him and says, oh, it's strangers that jumped me. And also, Alia doesn't hate you, so you're in there. Later on, Yasmin says, yeah, I will take your loan, actually.
Money?
You know that money? I've been thinking it would be quite nice. So as long as you can stay here with the family and I can watch you and you stay on the programme for a little bit longer, yes, I will have your money. Thank you very much. But if I get a hint of any unfinished business going on, I am going straight to the police. And we're on first name terms now because I was in a big story with them last year. And that was the end of that story. So it's not really solved yet, is it? I think that...
This is really not... I don't find this very interesting.
No, I don't either. I don't know what it is.
Oh no, Zidane's getting beaten up by his dodgy in-laws. Oh well.
I don't think we care enough about Zidane.
I don't care about Zidane.
Tell you what, it's no Seb being beaten up, is it?
No.
Cared about that. And all it took was like 2 weeks of him and Nina having a few nice scenes together.
Yeah.
You've blown your load too soon. You willy waggled and blow your load too soon, Coronation Street. You should have built up a bit of sympathy for Zidane, whereas at the moment, and I did kind of like you to Zidane, I'm thinking, you've just been a grumpy arse again. You probably deserve that beating.
He was
probably
always
looked
a
at somebody the
grumpy
wrong
arse,
way.
wasn't he?
He was a little bit.
He's a bit of a pouty McDonald's.
He was, but I had sympathy for him during the Rana story, and at the moment
I felt
I'm
sorry for
thinking,
him for
just
the
crack a
situation.
smile, Zidane.
Yeah, why don't you smile about something? I wouldn't smile if I had that haircut.
Stop it. I'm kind of interested, maybe, in the whole...
I'm only vaguely interested, like...
The whole Spanish mafia side of things. That he's
Spanish mafia?
Well, did they get married in Spain, Zidane? I don't know.
I don't think just because you get married in a country, the mafia is intimately involved in your marriage.
I'm kind of interested, but I'm also kind of thinking this fits more on EastEnders. But and also we've already had our gangster story this year with old Harvey, haven't we?
So do you not think this is actually his in-laws?
No, I think it is. I
But
think
they're
he's
gangsters.
Yeah, I think I want to know. This is why I'm kind of interested. What's this family that he's married into?
Okay, yeah. I don't know.
But I'm only semi-interested in it. I don't know. And it's because Alia's involved and I'm not really interested in her.
I don't know.
But what I did like this week was
everyone knows this.
Yasmin got her mojo back, didn't she?
Oh, so got her money back.
She was like, I'm back, we got Param with Frida this week, didn't we, by the way?
Yeah.
Where is Frida? Is she on the Red Wreck? No. Is she at Stillwaters? No. Where is Frida? Param! Community Centre. And there's a reference for the long-time listeners there.
You think that...
No, Yasmin, it was brilliant. I really did appreciate it. And I know she did back down on it eventually, but I did appreciate the scene where she was saying, I am not going to let a man tell me what to do and have anything to do with my money. She was standing up for him, and I think that this story, much more so than any rubbish that she did with running away from mice with Elaine and Kathy earlier this year, could be the chance for the Yasmin of old to make a triumphant comeback.
Is Elaine just scared of all small creatures that scurry about?
Yes.
She doesn't like tarantulas, she doesn't like mice.
Doesn't like David Platt.
Yeah.
Just
doesn't like ferrets.
But you glad to see Yasmin back? Do you think
Yasmin?
this? You know, Yasmin. I am Yasmin of old, and I'm not also hiding away from small creatures. When she was standing up to Zidane, like I was just talking about. Yes. Yeah, we might see some Yasmin giving some grandmotherly wise advice. I can't get the words out either. What?
Next.
Is there anything that's going on here? What's going on with Daisy at the moment and Ryan? Is it?
Well, she's
nothing?
hanging around with Daniel.
Oh yeah, she wasn't she? She was hanging around with Daniel today, wasn't she? Yeah. Do you think that Ryan and Alia are going to get back with each other?
They've hinted several times now. Like, oh, Alia must really like you because she's so sad that you're a cheating scumbag.
I'm wondering whether obviously these people who are coming after
what do you mean these
the heavy breathing mafia are going to be back. Then they're not just going to give up after giving him his good kicking. They're going to be back on the scene again. Or I wonder whether maybe Alia is going to get in trouble, whether they're going to take her hostage or something, or whether they're going to burst into number 6 and she'll be there. I don't know. And then Ryan has to come riding in on his white stallion and rescue her, and she'll fall into his arms and they'll be back together again. Fine. Whether they get back together or not, I'm not particularly fussed, but it seems like maybe they're going down that route. Maybe. Gemma doesn't care, everybody, so I'm going to give her something to do. Gemma, tell me about Max. What's he been getting up to this week?
Isn't he a little scrote?
I'm not liking him anymore this week.
He's supposed to be, though. He's supposed to be scroty.
He is, but there's a nice kind of scrote, isn't there?
Yeah, but
he's an unpleasant scrote.
All scrotes are unpleasant.
But some of them...
Are you mistaking scrote for scamp? Because I think you are.
Some scrotes you love to hate.
No.
Like...
No, you don't...
Like Corey. I like watching Corey. He's a scrote. Can't deny it.
Well, I don't like Max.
I don't like the new Max.
On Monday, Summer is struggling to write her personal statement for university, and Bernie thinks she needs healing crystals. Daniel is there too and says, look, I did this.
She wants to go to Oxford, don't you know?
Does she want to go to Oxford or Cambridge?
Oxford.
Right.
And he said I wanted to go to Oxford.
Listen, he says, come over to my office there, because I had a pop at this. I'll help you. Daniel, show me your degree from Oxford.
No, he was going to do a master's at Oxford, wasn't he?
Show me anything to prove that your advice will help me.
I thought he got accepted. I thought you said.
Well, in that case, great. He's great at writing letters that get you in there, but he's rubbish at actually doing any work.
Following through with it. Yeah, you might. I can guarantee you that you'll get accepted into Oxford, Summer, but you may well have some dramatic storylines here in Weatherfield that are going to prevent you from going. Yeah, probably.
So he says, write what you care about, because that's what worked for me. And she's like, oh, I want to stay after school. And he says, no, I'm not doing private tuition. Then Summer's getting really stressed about this, but he's like, let's go out, let's go do this and that. She's like, no, I can't, I don't have time. I'm trying to do work because I can't study at lunchtime. The librarian's got no sense of discipline.
Oh yeah, she's at the cafe, isn't she? Is she?
Daniel's seen Summer in the cafe and he's like, all right, I'll tutor you for the Oxford exam in exchange for some babysitting.
Because I've just realised I've been working at a school for the past 3 weeks and I left Bertie at home alone, so...
On Wednesday, David notices Max doesn't have any homework, and he's like, "Oh, I don't need to do any homework because I've got ADHD." And they said that they don't want to erode my confidence. And David's like, "You would never use the word erode. That must be a quote from somebody. I believe you." And then he mentions it to Daniel later, and Daniel's like, "He's taking the mick out of you. Erode's not even a word." Max makes fun of Summer when he sees her going up to Mr. Osborne's flat, and then David gets mad because he thinks Daniel's tutoring Summer when he wouldn't tutor Max. I don't know why David thinks that teachers have to tutor anybody that asks them.
No, they don't have to. I know I'd pick the tutor.
Wouldn't be the annoying scrote.
No.
Be the stupid annoying swat. On Friday, Max overhears David having a moan about Daniel.
What did David call her earlier? Like plain Jane Big Brain or something. I've heard that one before.
Charlie Big Potatoes. Max overhears David moaning that Daniel's tutoring Summer when she's already so smart.
Yeah, plain Jane Mega Brain. I wrote it down here.
He comments about after Bethany, he's obviously got type. He wants to tutor in inverted commas.
Insinuating things here.
At school, Daniel catches Max having a laugh and making fun of him, and Max starts insinuating things and saying, "Oh, we're just talking."
Parrots back what David said, basically, doesn't he?
You and Bethany, woo. And then after class, Daniel can't find his wallet and accuses Max of taking it, and Max says, "I didn't." Then he gets detention, and then they both sit there, and Max is just sitting on his phone. Why Daniel didn't take his phone off him, I don't know. Is he not allowed to do that or something?
I don't know. I mean, detention at Weatherfield High there just seems a bit like a bit of a DOS, doesn't it?
Yeah, just sit on your phone with your sound up.
Which he probably would have been doing back at home, but except nobody's going to be asking him to,
empty the dishwasher.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't have to listen to Gail wittering on.
Yeah. So he's not bothered, and Daniel's like...
he doesn't want to leave when Daniel says, "Got to go home now."
Well, Daniel says, "Oh, I can do this all day," and then Tracy brings him up, and he's like, "Right, I've got to go." And Max is like, "I'm not going anywhere. I'm enjoying myself." So Daniel picks his bag up and throws it out of the classroom. Then
I'm sure that the sound effects that were playing on Daniel's game phone there were the one that they used to use about 15, 20 years ago, like from Kirby Game or something.
Maybe he's got a Game Boy emulator on his phone.
Maybe, yeah.
So Daniel apologises later on the street to Max, and Max says, "Well, I had a lasagna in there and you ruined it.
In my bag.
When you threw my bag." And Daniel starts raiding Max's bag for the wallet. David catches this.
and Toya starts raiding Max's bag for the lasagna. And she's like, "Oh, it's a meat one."
"Oh, gross, you've ruined it already before you threw it." Max grasses him up, and Daniel tells David that Max is horrible. And, it's not really news to David, I don't think. And then it comes out that David said that Daniel fancied Summer. And David's like, "Don't go around telling everybody what I said." This is the worst bit about having kids. Because some of the stuff you talk about around kids, you don't think they're listening. And then they come out with it later on. And you're like, "Shut up, get me in trouble."
I know, I have
fear
that one day somebody's going to overhear what teachers talk about in the staff room.
But haven't you had children say things that obviously the parents would never want them to say?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure, yeah.
So, that's bad, isn't it?
It's bad, isn't it? I don't know where we are in the notes.
So, David has to go at Max for saying stuff, and Max is like, "Don't tell me what to do." They all get mad. Shona feels sorry for Daniel.
Oh, yeah, Shona gives an impassioned defence of teachers. Thank you, Shona. And Shona felt like she was back to normal old Shona. She didn't sound like shot in the box Shona, did she, today?
I was just about to say that in order to sympathise with a teacher, the only way that Coronation Street could do it is to give it to the brain damage character.
She sounded perfectly
Shona's
rational.
Like, "Oh, teachers work really hard."
Don't take your medications, Shona.
Oh, Shona, you're talking nonsense again.
They have breakfast in a cafe every day. They turn
Rocking
up at
at
school
9.
8:59 and they're back by 3:35.
And they do all their homework. Well, they don't have any homework.
The sun set very late in tonight's episode, didn't it? Because Daniel and Max were home from school for a very long time and it was still sunny outside. It's almost like they filmed this in the middle of summer.
I really was wrong-footed by this because I've never really heard Coronation Street have a character that wasn't a teacher sympathise with anything to do with how hard it must be a teacher. But Shona's like, "It must be difficult with all the parents, everything, yada, yada, yada." shut up, David,
Yeah.
you're making it worse.
She's basically saying, you're turning into one of these difficult parents that's going to march up the school.
No such thing. They're all brilliant, and so are the children. Daisy goes round to Daniel's flat, which I thought this was odd. Made me wonder whether Daisy was originally supposed to be a different character. Because she's hanging around Daniel's flat. The last we saw of these two, she was trying to get him in bed because of his house. His mum left him this house. So is that still the plan? I thought Daniel saw straight through her. But she's acting like they're mates, so maybe this is a new tack that she's taking.
No, she sympathised after the whole Bertie swallowed a battery thing.
Oh, I felt the same way because my brother died.
My brother died in paddling pool.
Battery poisoning. Anyway, he says, look, you can't. She's I think she's pretty on the nose here. I agree with her. She's like, you can't beat kids up.
Not 3 weeks into your first year as being a teacher, because Daniel, you're not properly qualified as a teacher. I don't know if anyone's told you this until you've finished. Yeah, I don't know what they call it. It used to be NQT year, but they changed it this year, and it's not even a year. 2 years, Gemma. Yeah. After you got your PGCE, it's only then that you are a fully qualified teacher. So he's got a long way to go before he gets his foot in the door properly. So beating up a kid in your third week isn't that? And I know your dad did it, but you can't blame that. If you get hauled into the weather, into the I can't remember who's head at Weatherfield High, but they've had somebody like the same actor for like 20 years, haven't they?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Just showing what I know, or not. But yeah, you can't say, but sir, my dad did it. He punched Aidan Critchley, so I thought it would be okay. And
because the headmaster would be like, look, mate, I know we used to beat children with sticks and go off and have a cigarette in the staff room and a nip of whiskey. You can't do any of that anymore.
But however tempting it may be, you can't really do it.
And you can't smoke in school anymore.
No.
I thought this was quite funny.
I don't want to hit a child.
Or smoke. No. I thought this was quite funny, the way that Daisy was telling Daniel this, as though this was information that he didn't have previously.
Yeah, he should have run over to the bookshelf and got one of his Teaching for Dummies books. And
so he doesn't say anything about that in there. I've just looked in the back, I've just looked up hitting kids. There isn't even an entry. So I think I go by my teacher training, Daisy, which said, don't worry about it, either way is fine. Tracy rings him. She's like, when are you going to come round? The mystery of this week is, where is Daniel's wallet? And they never actually explained where it was.
No, well, this is the thing, isn't it? Did Max take
I kept expecting Tracy to say, when are you going to come around and pick your wallet up?
Yeah,
also your kid.
Yeah.
And then, anyway, David buzzes in, and I thought he was going to come around and say, I found your wallet in Max's bag, but it's probably a coincidence. He baked it into lasagna. Sorry. David tells Daniel, blame me for something. And he's like, I do.
Blame me for what Max said, because he was just about Bethany. He was just
so I do blame you. It's always the parents. He says, I'm still not going to tutor your little scrote, but I will keep an eye on him at school, which honestly is your job, Daniel. What do you want? A medal? Weatherfield's Good Samaritan Award? David leaves, still not really happy. Tells Daniel he's not fit to be around children. Later on, Daisy's a bit miffed that she's been over for so long and he's barely shut up about Max, and she's like, get over it, or blow over. David wants to march down the school to complain about Daniel, and Shona says, you're just going to make life difficult for everybody, shut up. The end.
Yeah, so they're... Is David going to march down the school?
So, where's this going?
I'm not really...
I don't get, what's the story here? Is this a story that Daniel... I don't think Daniel fancies Summer, and I don't think this Summer fancies Daniel, but is that where this is going?
I thought there was a hint of something on Monday's episode, but then they kind of veered away from it. But
it felt like
she was loitering around him a little bit.
Isn't it?
Just as a crush, but then I feel sorry for poor Ardy. He bought her a cheese selection last week, and it was
so rude. What an annoying, rude cow.
I don't know. Maybe it's not going to go there. Maybe that was literally just the catalyst for David to make the accusation.
I just really hope that if Coronation Street does decide to go down that route, it's going to be a one-way crush that he has to sort of gently let her down on, because it's already a bit of a stigma to be a male teacher. You already get a load of crap off people about your motivations, and people are very suspicious sometimes of teachers who are blokes. And we don't all need like this storyline to add fuel to the fire.
The fact that she has just started this relationship with Ardy, who has been mysteriously absent for this week, makes me think that it was just there to arouse David's suspicions.
Well,
and the story is really about the relationship between David and Daniel and Daniel and Max.
Well, he'll come calling back once she's eaten the cheese. Don't get in the way of a woman and her cheese. If you buy a cheese plate, leave her alone to eat it. Give her a couple of weeks, and then she'll want to see.
Is that
you.
how long it takes? Is it?
Well, it depends on what sort of cheese. What are we talking here? Edam, or stronger stuff like Stilton.
Yeah, you got to have that.
Really sharp
it's a
cheddar.
Giant block of Parmesan. You can't eat that.
Oh
all in
no,
one
you're
sitting,
gonna have to come back in a few weeks.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, Max being a little arse. Are we supposed to feel any sympathy towards him? Because he is just being the most.
No.
Honestly, if he wasn't related to David, I'd be like, this stupid cookie cutter character is going to be out of the show after this storyline's over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is Daniel going to kill him?
No. No, you're right. He's just.
He is just
arsey
one
teenager.
of these anonymous thug characters that causes conflict for our favourite character before mysteriously disappearing into the ether. But he's obviously not going to do that.
No.
What's going to happen at the end? Is he going to be like, I'm sorry, Daniel, I'm such an asshole to you.
Yeah.
I'm going
to go to Oxford now, actually.
I want to go to Cambridge, so me and Summer can have a boat race.
Maybe. I don't know. He's obviously going to tone it down and everything eventually, but don't like him.
You're not supposed to
talking
like
of
him.
reform scrotes, Gemma, Kelly in jail. So we get a bit more to this Mia thing, and I thought this was quite a good mystery on Monday actually, because we have Gary visiting, don't we? No, Sharon visits on Monday,
and Simon.
No, Simon has visited already. Hasn't he? Yeah. So Simon's already visited, and Mia's teasing Kelly at the beginning of the episode about Simon being her boyfriend, and she's like, no, he's not. Please, don't put Simon and Kelly together. That'd be awful. Mia says, oh, but you're doing yourself up looking nice. You must have somebody coming around later. And Kelly's a bit coy about this, but it turns out that her mystery visitor is Sharon, who came visiting at the furniture shop last week to have a go at Gary. And she says to Kelly, she mentions this cash that Gary left Imran through the postbox a couple of weeks ago, but she doesn't say it was Gary. And Kelly immediately thinks, oh, well, this must be my dad that left this. And Sharon thinks that that's quite handy alibi, because she knows that Gary killed Rick, just in case you've forgotten that.
Does Sarah know? Sarah knows.
Sarah knows.
Watch.
Sarah knows, and there's a watch thing. Maria doesn't.
She does
know. Maria knows.
Maria knows. But
Sharon definitely knows now.
Yep.
Kelly doesn't know.
Kelly
she thinks that he's still alive.
Yep. Well, she's like,
Write
oh
it
wow,
down, everybody.
if my dad gave you money, he must be still alive.
Yes, that's what the
and
takeaway
Sharon's
from
like,
this is.
Don't want him to say this, but I have robbed corpses. I'm not saying I did that to your dad, but I am saying your logic doesn't track.
So in the background, Mia is looking pretty narked at this, and we were at the time going, what's going on here? I thought this was going down a route where Mia was maybe fancied Kelly or something.
Yeah, me too.
And then she thinks that Sharon is Kelly's girlfriend or something, but it wasn't that at all. And it was actually quite interesting storyline development, I thought, that Mia knows of Rick Neelan because he is the reason that I am in prison and why my mum is dead. Yeah,
sorry.
And she's Kelly's kind of getting blanked by other people.
Yeah, because Mia's spreading it.
She's spreading the word that that Kelly is related to the notorious Rick, and it turns out that her mum owed Rick thousands of pounds. She wanted to run off. Everybody in the estate basically knew who Rick Neelan was and owed him money. This Mia's mum ended up dealing drugs to try and pay him back. Then she was using drugs and she died just before Mia's 15th birthday. So she's got a bit of a chip in her shoulder.
Yeah, but then Mia started dealing
Neelans
as well, and that's why she ended up in prison.
Yes, sorry, yeah, that's quite important too. So anyway, basically, you're a Neelan and we're not friends anymore.
That's so mean.
I know. And she also says to Kelly, by the way, Rick Neelan doesn't back down over things. So you're saying that he's run off to Spain, but
I don't
that
think
doesn't
that's
track
right.
with the Rick Neelan I know. If he's disappeared, it's because somebody has disappeared him.
I thought that was really sinister.
I thought that was as well. I thought that was great. So Kelly phones up Gary at the end of the episode, and she's like, "Are you the one that sent me this money? That sent Imran the money? And is my dad alive?" And he's like, "Yes, of course." She says, "Like, I want to talk to you," and he says, "Okay, I will come in." So he does. He has a little bit of a visit on Wednesday, and she's like, "Right, I want to know more about my dad. I want to know what he did, who he hurt, and where he is." And she says, "I know that my dad gave the money for the case, so I know he's definitely alive, and he must be in touch with you. So where is he?"
What a pickle.
Yeah, we do. It kind of left there. We have a scene at the end of it where Sharon has a go at Gary in the furniture shop and starts throwing bits of furniture at him. But the storyline kind of comes to a grinding halt midway through Wednesday's episode, and we don't really get anywhere with it. But I was getting quite into this. I did the whole everybody in prison knows Rick Neelan was an interesting angle that I hadn't considered, even though it does seem to write itself. Now I come to think about it. Well, did you enjoy this?
It kind of puts paid to the idea that Kelly was mistreated because she didn't have any money. Because she was mistreated because her dad's a criminal.
Yeah.
So that story doesn't really play as neatly as annoying man gets off because his dad's a rich guy, whereas poor orphan girl, whose dad is actually a criminal genius.
Yeah.
Gets.
Good point.
I don't know what I'm trying to say.
So yeah, we every time something like this happens, I think, oh, maybe the truth will come out soon. I don't know.
Is it going to come out at Christmas?
Maybe.
I need this resolution.
We need the resolve because it's too much for us to keep in our long-term memories. Coronations.
We can't keep track.
We don't actually have a board that says who knows that Gary killed Rick.
No, what we need
our brains
is like
aren't what they once were.
we need like one of those maps, like in Churchill's bunker.
Yeah.
And we move pawns around with one of those.
Or like with Sally and Aggie with the.
Oh yeah.
Well, has the traffic situation solved itself
well,
now? I think so. I mean, they were able to get a horse-drawn hearse down there, and there was no problem this week. So I assume that Inkerman Street is
back to
open
normal.
back again, and anybody can park there. And
great.
Anyway, Bailey, Gemma, just do you want to do this one? It is your turn, but I know you're flagging.
I'm barely conscious.
You Bailey can't.
On Wednesday, Grace is moving out.
Hooray!
And Michael has no idea about this nefarious extortion plan that she's got, where she's basically forcing Ed and Aggie to put her up for free in the house that they're trying to renovate to stop her from moving out of the area with their beautiful grandchild, Glory. So Michael innocently says to Grace, "Oh, you know what? I should be helping you out with your rent. I'll pay half of the rent." And she says, "Oh, that's brilliant. Pay it directly to me. Don't give it to your parents. Pay it to me." And Ed is there, and he kind of winces. I don't understand this because why has Michael not been told? This would have been. I would have told Michael. The only reason he doesn't know is to make this. Is to eventually give the resolution to the story is that he finds out and she leaves under a cloud. Surely.
I don't know.
Why,
like I said,
why is this a secret?
Struggling to care about this story.
She's like, brilliant. Grace visits Ed and she says, I've got a snagging list. And I don't know how common the term snagging list is.
You have to explain it to me, but
it's
you have to explain to me a lot of things.
When you move, it's usually when you move, well, it's reserved for when you move into a new build house. And everything's rubbish, and you have a snagging list of things like when I turn the light on in the lounge, I get electrocuted, and the toilet is connected to my dishwasher.
I hate when that happens.
Can you please fix it? It's on my snagging list. And she says, here's my snagging list, you better get it sorted, otherwise I'm going to do a runner. Ha ha ha. Aggie overhears, cannot believe the brass neck of this woman, but Ed tells her that Michael's gonna be paying this woman to live in the house half of this fake rent. Is their fault they're enabling this? Why are they even giving a figure? Is Grace just gonna make up a number?
Yeah, I wonder. I don't know.
Can't Ed go to Michael, just give it to me?
Michael just wants to keep Grace happy, so that
I think Ed and Aggie are not helping themselves whatsoever in this situation. Aggie's like, I want to have it out with her, and Ed's like, no, we just need to give her what she wants. Oh man, Aggie has just been vindicated over and over again in this storyline, hasn't she?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, she's always said that Grace is a wrong one.
I was like, I don't know what this Aggie woman's got against our lovely Grace. There must be some more to this. But she had her number from the start. On Friday, Ed can't go to see James play his first football practice match or something. Going back after his poor little leg. Because he's got to sort the house out for Grace, and he can't.
Got better quite quickly, really, didn't he? Don't know what all the fuss was about.
My ankle still hurts.
They go back to football.
Well, listen, he's got no money and no time because he can't take on any other jobs because he's sorting out this house because Grace is moaning and threatening them and blackmailing them. In the pub, Paul says, look, I'll do this other job for you. Give me your card and I'll go get the stuff from the suppliers if you trust me. And Ed says, no, get on with the painting. And Paul's like, but it's not time for painting, it's time for the carpentering. And if we do the painting now, it's just going to get messy. But Ed has got no choice. He needs to get progress made, but he also can't afford to buy things because of evil Grace. Danny and James come back from the football. It all went really well. James wants to celebrate, but Aggie can't let them. She has to make a silly excuse like, I'll cook for you. I'll make some marmalade chicken wings. Because they can't afford to go out. Later, Danny overhears Aggie having to go at Grace. Does she call her a gold digger or something? And Grace is just laughing every minute. She's like, bye then, bye, love you, mwah. She's just really rubbing it in.
Yeah, but Aggie
tells Danny that Grace was being selfish and saying she can't come to dinner to try to besmirch her without telling the truth. Danny has no... See, if I was Danny, I'd be...
personality, point in this programme.
How dare you? Danny suddenly remembers that he can cook and he doesn't want to let Aggie...
I did that Shack of Jeffrin course.
He doesn't want to let Aggie make him marmalade chicken wings.
No.
So he says to help her. This is the thing. If I was...
Can marmalade chicken wings be nice? Because
Yeah.
I don't like marmalade. So I wonder whether Aggie cooked them or whether Gordon
like
Ramsay cooked them.
You wouldn't like it.
Okay.
Well, I mean, think about duck à l'orange.
Oh yeah, I guess so.
I would imagine that she's going to mix it with something disgusting, but you could make quite a nice glaze. It's just an orange based glaze. Anyway.
I prefer just normal hot sauce.
Oh yeah. And butter. That's how you make buffalo chicken wings.
Yeah.
If I was Danny, I'd be taking notes here about how Aggie treats her other in-law child.
Yeah. Well, he's in favour now, but if he ever gets on the wrong side of Aggie...
See, because she's really nice to Danny, I'd be like, either Grace is a bitch or Aggie's one of these women that doesn't like other women. And that's why she's being mean to Grace. Either way, he's got no problem, has he? He doesn't need to worry about it.
Oh dear. I was wondering, here's my little theory here, I think Ed might go back to gambling, because we know he had a gambling problem before he came to Coronation Street, and if he's down on the cash...
Maybe he'll be like, I can make this £20 into £100,000.
Exactly. He's going to go off to the casino with Uncle Ronnie, maybe.
Investing in
making
crypto.
Things worse.
That's how Zidane got his money.
Yeah.
He bought stocks in Tesla.
Just pray to the windfall fairy. This is their turn. Right, that is this
week. So do you have no comments about this?
I've got no comments about this story. It was a little bit dull and it didn't really take up much time. Have you got any comments? I'm kind of enjoying Grace having everyone twist around a little finger, but storyline wise, I'm not particularly fussed about where it goes. I do think that Danny is a waste of space. James isn't needed in this story, and I like Michael, but he didn't really have much to do this week.
Ed and Aggie are just letting Grace to walk all over them. Why I don't get why they're lying to Michael about it at all. It's really unfair.
There was probably a really good reason a few weeks ago when the story was last on that we've forgotten.
Wow, what a week! How do you like that week?
Well, like I said, Monday I was like, it's fine. I'm not that invested in Zidane to care that he's got beaten up and the majority of the episode gets taken away by it. Wednesday, thought it was bloody brilliant. Today, Oh, a little bit disappointing. It's always nice to have the old guard together, isn't it? Because your Ritas, your Kens, your Audreys, because there's only so long that you'll be able to get them together, but it didn't hit the mark is the best way I could put it, really. But it could have been more farcical, so I suppose I can count my blessings there.
One thing I want to say is this reference is probably one person's going to get what I'm talking about.
Is it me?
No. In the church, when Gail took a swig of Audrey's tequila and kind of blinked out of her hair, I know exactly who she reminded me of, and it's Spooky Kitaro. Do you know what I'm talking about? Google it.
I only know because you showed me earlier when you told me this.
Exactly like him.
So, I'm having Frida as my character of the week. Sorry if that's a controversial opinion, but I really enjoyed it. And I know I'm not going into it. I don't need to explain it.
I don't think we need to get mad at each other
Frida.
about having a different opinion. I'm not mad at anybody who I was a bit mad on Wednesday about the reaction, but you know, I can imagine somebody writing into us going, this story was awful, it misrepresented the deaf community, it's unfair to have Frida be I can totally understand why you would dislike it. But honestly, Wednesday's episode, I just found it so fascinating because it was like everything I really like out of a soap. It was dramatic, it was a bit silly, and I felt like I learned something about people
I felt
that
it didn't come across as a preachy public information film
but
kind of way at all.
Because I actually saw people saying completely the opposite, and they really felt as though it was like a public service announcement for cochlear. Like,
didn't feel like that to me.
It didn't feel like that to me either.
It's a tough gig being a soap writer, isn't it?
It really is, yeah.
Because you can't please everybody.
No.
But
It's
well
weird.
done, you were able to please me, which is a hard thing to do sometimes. So I applaud you. Who's your character of the week?
I think Frida too.
Yeah,
I thought
go
she was
Frida.
great. Oh, one thing we didn't say that annoyed me about that scene in particular was that it was great representation for deaf people to see a deaf character signing, and there was that scene beforehand when we had
In the garden.
Lisa and Frida and the teacher all just speaking to each other with sign language, and there was no translation. It was just purely if you were deaf you could follow it. But when Frida was giving her speech, they had a few dramatic camera angles from different like from the back or like from the side, and her hands were obscured, and I thought, what a missed opportunity to have a deaf character signing and to have deaf people be able to watch this programme and see her signing and follow along. Why would you move the camera so that you couldn't see her hands? What a missed opportunity.
Oh, well.
Anyway, Frida, character of the week, and I think I'm going to give this...
I'm fascinated to see what scores this get. I think this is going to be one of those weeks
really
where...
divisive.
Very, very divisive. There are going to be some very low scores. But, I mean, equally, like I said, it seems like Norris's funeral went down quite well with the majority of people, so maybe they'll be a bit more forgiving of the Wednesday that they didn't like.
Is this a week that's, like, please no one?
It was. I'm gonna hedge my bets on this one, and I'm gonna give it 3 geriatric backstabbers out of 5. Could have been better if the funeral had
Been good.
better. Yeah, 3.
The thing is, I really liked Wednesday's episode.
Were you as disappointed by the funeral as I was?
I don't think I wasn't expecting a lot.
I wasn't mega disappointed, and as like I said, it could have been a lot worse.
The thing to me
it
that
didn't raise the score.
It didn't feel special to me because I feel as though we already had we had a really nice scene with Gail and Audrey on Wednesday when Audrey was crying about Norris and stuff. That was nice. We already had a scene beforehand last week when everyone found out that Norris had died, when they got sad about it. I felt like this episode wasn't as much of a goodbye to Norris as like the tribute episode. So I didn't feel like I'd missed out on putting a pin in him, you know? I feel like I've already done it.
What's your score? What's your score?
I am gonna... This might be shocking. 4.
Ooh.
Headless Paper Boys.
No, I can't believe neither of us went for Willy Wagglers. We'll leave that to
I know, I really wanted to do Willy Wagglers.
Or Waggled Willies.
Headless Paper Boys are fine as well.
Fine.
I hope that if you hated Wednesdays, you understand where we. This is all I want. I
That-
don't want
that's
anyone.
all I want.
I'm not trying to change anybody's mind. That's what I want to make clear. I just wanted to explain the perspective of somebody who liked it, in case it softened your opinion, maybe, about hating it. But then, you know, I've hated things and nobody can change my mind about why I hated them and thought they were stupid. And you could lecture me for hours about, you know, representation and stuff, and I'd still be like, no, I didn't like it. So write in, please, if you have a differing, or even if you have the same opinion. It's nice to hear from everybody.